Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Steelers Roundtable. Steelers Live at 4 p.m. I'm Missi Matthews. I want to introduce you to our panel before we start talking about running backs and the Steelers offensive line as we prepare for free agency. Joining us once again, Craig Wolfley, former Steelers offensive line. We have a lot of O-line questions, so thanks for joining us again, Wolf. We appreciate
Thank you for having me.
Bob Labriola is also here, as well as Matt Williamson, our crew from last week. The positions continue. Guys, so we're going to start with the running backs. Let's take a look at who is currently on the Steelers roster as they head into free agency. A lot of these names we do know. And once again, thanks to everybody for submitting your Twitter questions. I think that'll help us carry as we go throughout the show today. So let's get right to them. And our first one is from JT. Seems like the Steelers like to draft bigger backs out of college and then have them tone up after their first year, giving the examples of Le'Veon Bell and James Conner. Will Benny Snell follow the same blueprint? And before I let you guys maybe answer, I should say Benny Snell has been in here, the building here at the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex quite a lot this offseason. So, Matt?
I don't know what the plan is, but I think it's a good advice for him, to be honest with you. It's not that he lacked quickness or had too much bulk, but he could use a little more juice. I have no problem at all with that plan to trim a little bit.
It's never a problem, I don't think, if you're going to trim. I mean, that's what they did with Le'Veon Bell. They dropped about 20 pounds. I remember Mike Tomlin telling him even before the draft. But the fact is, look, it's individual. You don't know what each guy needs. You've got to take it individually and build on the big things that he can do, what he's capable of doing. One of the things you got to remember when you're coming out of college, back in my day, you ate a lot of dorm food, so you just ate a lot of pizza a lot of times, and you just blew up a little bit. Obviously, these guys come into the pros, you get these trainers, and they get all these caloric restrictions and everything else. So it may be a good thing. If it's something that will make the back faster, quicker, and more dependable, obviously you do that.
A lot of times in college, I think players believe that, it's a size game, size and strength game, but Mike Tomlin believes that it's a highly conditioned athlete's game at the NFL level, and so I just think that there is going to be with a lot of guys and not just running backs a natural reshaping of the body, especially when they come here, because of what Mike Tomlin believes, from what they were in college to what they become once they get here with the Steelers. And I think we've seen that at some other positions as well, not just running back.
It's a great point too, because these guys have never played 16 games plus a preseason plus hopefully a postseason. And you really got to change how you're set up for the whole year.
Well, not only that too, but there are more demands on you during the week.
Absolutely.
There's no 20-hour limit, even as generous and kind as the new collective bargaining agreement is, right, Wolf? You don't have that 20-hour-a-week restriction that you have in college, and so guys also have to be able to be available for practice during the week, especially when they're young, because here, if you're not available for practice, you don't get to play.
One of the big keys that you both were talking about were the 16-week seasons, and actually 20-week with the preseason, and then you go beyond with training camp. One of the biggest things you have to be able to do is condition your body for that long of a workload. There's a difference between playing 11 or 12 games and then going 20-plus games, that your hamstrings, your lower back, your whole core, all these things you've got to condition. And so to do that, that's part of that preparation period, and a lot of it has to be guys start to drop excess weight because there's a lot more demands on them. Especially you see it with a lot of young wide receivers. They don't understand the demands of what your hamstrings and your ligamentation along your backside. There's a lot of running there. You know it, baby. So it takes a while for them to be able to get acclimated to what the demands of the job are going to be.
And those rookies, it's the first time they didn't have an offseason. If you think about the second they played their last game, they trained for the draft, and then they got drafted, and then they're with their new team, and then it's preseason. So they didn't have an offseason for the first time in their life.
All right, our second Twitter question involving running backs. This one is from PJ. Any chance the Steelers go running back with their second rounders? Matt?
I think I'm in the minority, but I think there's a very strong chance they go running back in the second round. James's contract is coming to an end. You got a lot of other people that you need to give money to. His durability is obviously an issue. It can be a sweet spot in the drafts for running backs. We see the Steelers get Le'Veon Bell in that neighborhood. This draft sets up well as well. The rest of the group is not especially electric. So if you can get an all-round, guy with a little more juice that's in the building right now, I think it's a real strong possibility.
Wolf?
I would think that they're going to stick to their model, which they always, to me in my mind, for the most part, always stick to, and that's the best player available at that moment in time. I mean, to me, that has been the tried and proven model that you want to have over the years, because that always creates for you that ability to get the best player that you can find at that moment, kind of like the Bill Nunn thing. You know, find that guy and then bring him in-house, and whatever he is that you do with, unless, of course, you move up in the draft to get somebody special. And we've seen guys like that with Troy and so forth. So if a back would be in that place and he'd be deemed the best guy at that point in time, that would be the guy.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that the Steelers need to fortify the running back position this offseason. I really don't know that there's a whole lot of going to be 3-down NFL feature backs on the free agent market that you can afford. And so probably it's going to have to come from the draft. Now, do they pick them on the second round? Is it later? I don't know that, but there are definitely other positions though that the Steelers need to look at. We'll be getting into those in subsequent roundtables. But yeah, running back is a position that they're going to need to fortify, because when you look at the roster, James Conner looked like he was that guy in 2018. But now health is an issue. And I think if you look at all the other guys, Jalen Samuels, Benny Snell, Kareth White, none of those guys have, what you need to be a 3-down running back in the NFL. Each of them have, something going against them. Benny Snell, maybe it's a little bit of the speed and receiving. Jalen Samuels is more of a receiver H-back than he is a running back. Kareth White might be a little small to stand up to blitzing linebackers and pass protection. And so besides James Conner, the Steelers really don't have what you would say is a number one running back in the NFL, and his health is an issue. And as Matt mentioned, his contract is coming up. Do you want to commit long-term to a guy with on and off health issues? So I see the Steelers doing something there, whether it's a second round or not. I mean, to me, that would be a total guess.
Okay, so overall then, with all that being said, where is this group trending? Up, down, status quo? What do you think, Matt?
I think it's a weakness of the team, to be honest with you. I mean, I think it was on, a lot of people would just blame the quarterback situation for the offensive woes, but throughout the course of the year, I thought the running backs left too many yards on the field. And one thing that's not talked about enough, because we're going to get to the offensive line, they were a real liability in protection. I mean, that's one of the absolute most important traits for a running back in today's NFL. And a lot of them just because they're too inexperienced. They haven't done it. I mean, I remember sitting down with Jalen when he was a new draftee. What do you think about protection? Never done it. He never did it at NC State. So it's not their fault, but they need to get better in that department.
Okay, Wolf?
I think so much is health dependent. Jalen Samuels, when he started off, he had no clue as to what a blitzing linebacker looked like other than to wave at him. And went by, or blitz control when he would run a pattern. But by the end of towards the end when he was playing, he really picked the game up. He was really like getting up there and smackulating guys right in the grill. And it took a while because he got run over for a while, and he started to be a little late. But then once he got that hitting down and he was able to stand in there and take that blow and get after it, he really showed me something and improved. So again, I look for consistency developed through repetition, being out there. James has got it. He can do it. All right, Benny, he's got some work to do it there. Jalen, he's one of those guys that I think he's on the come. His star is still rising as far as being able to pick up the blitzes and so forth. But overall, this is a group that's got to improve, but I think it's more health dependent than anything else.
Labs?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that the group is health dependent. I also don't believe, though, that you can depend on the health. Because, 1 year it's an anomaly, 2 years it's a trend. So it's a trend now with James Conner with the health, in my opinion, or at least you need to prepare for it in that way. And so, as I said earlier, I believe that this is a position that needs to be addressed because except for Conner, who did it for 13 games in a season 2 seasons ago, the Steelers don't have anyone on their roster right now who has the all-around skill set to be a number one back in this league.
Man, I was impressed. You say that again.
Anomaly.
Health dependent? No, health dependent that can't depend on health. That's like Zen for idiots. That's awesome. that's good stuff, buddy.
All right, we are going to take a quick break here on the Steelers Roundtable. When we return, as Matt alluded to, we're going to talk about the Steelers offensive line.
Hey, you know what? Let's just score the game, man. Oh.
Still up by 3.
Oh, man, nice.
It's realistic.
Dude, Franco's a legend.
Whoa. Hey, did you know you can watch highlights on the new Steelers app?
Download the Steelers official mobile app today and never miss out on any of the action. You can also receive app alerts straight to your phone when new episodes of Steelers Live are available. Just go to the settings page in the app and toggle on Steelers Live notifications.
Bless you.
Welcome back, everyone. As we said, we're going to talk about the Steelers' offensive line heading into free agency. So let's do a little refresher. We will start with the interior guys that are currently on the Steelers roster, many of the names that you know. Also, let's go to the outside, the exterior guys that are on the Steelers roster. Zach Banner, somebody who really came into his own this season. Matt Filer, I think we might talk a lot about him. And then Alejandro Villanueva has been a starter. Chuk's one of those guys, also a swing tackle. So let's jump right into your questions. And our first one is, do you guys see the same starting 5 offensive line for this upcoming season? And if not, what changes do you see? This is from Heather. Matt, I'll start with you.
I don't see the same 5 coming back. And they've had remarkable consistency year to year. The few teams can match. But I think Ramon will probably be a cap casualty. They have to work out some contracts with Filer, Banner, Finney. I think those all get done and won't be real hard to accomplish. But then I think the left guard spot becomes a competition between Finney and Filer. And your right tackle situation could be Banner or Chukes, with Filer having the ability to go back there. So they have some versatility and they have some experience with these young guys too. So it's not a bad situation.
Wolf, you know a little thing or two about the O-line.
Try to, a little bit. I love to eat with these guys, that's for sure. The point is with these guys, you look at last year, and what I love about this group of guys, when you've got a group that starts together like 3-4 years, that's like a married couple being together in 25 years. I mean, that's a long time to have the same group of guys, and it's a wonderful thing. Back in my day, before free agency and there was more movement, you had more guys sticking together for longer periods of time, obviously. But all that being said, I think how Matt just put out the whole thing is exactly right. I think it's going to come down to, I would think, Filer going to left guard if the great Ragu becomes, the big Ragu there becomes a cap casualty. But Filer's a guy, you think about it, last year against the Rams, they had him play at left guard. He's a knee bender. He's a guy that can get low with great power, great strength. He's shown the ability to play right tackle. But again, if you have that situation coming where that left guard is available, one thing I'd love to see BJ be able to compete with him, Filer, and have at it. But I'm afraid that most offensive coordinators, they hate for their backup center to be in the starting lineup, and that's just something that it's a bugaboo with coordinators. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, and I agree with Wolf on the last point that he made, that it's a very rare thing where a coach, an NFL coach, is willing to have his backup center on the field at a different position, because in one play then you can go from having 2 centers to none, and then you got real problems. And so that's why I'm hoping it doesn't happen, but I'm thinking that maybe BJ Finney might be enticed to leave for a starting job, and then so then you would have Matt Filer in at left guard. If Finney leaves, hopefully not, but if he does, and then you have Ramon as the cap casualty. The thing with Chukes is too, he needs to play. I think he would have played more this past season if not for that off-season shoulder surgery. As it was explained to me, it takes almost a calendar year to get your full strength back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he did some nice things, I thought, as a rookie. Chukes in some limited playing time and as the extra tight end, and so I think he's got a future in this league. So I would expect him to make a real run at a starting job. Maybe it's Matt Filer's right tackle job after he moves to left guard. But you have a situation where I thought one of the bad things that happened, maybe a little bit of a short-sighted personnel move, was losing Fred Johnson. The undrafted rookie from Florida, because if Fred Johnson is still on this roster, you got some nice depth, because that was a guy I thought who showed enough in camp in the preseason that indicated that he could be, a contributing part of an offensive line in this league. Now you don't have him, so if you look at let's just pretend.
By the way, he was my camp phenom. By the way, I
Just
did
say
beat
it.
Tunch.
Just saying, yeah, okay. But I mean, if you go back to the interior depth chart there, if B.J. Finney leaves and Ramon is a cap casualty, who's your backup center? I mean, who's your backup guard? I mean, now you're
thin all of a sudden.
You're thin all of a sudden, and now maybe that second round pick, instead of a running back, which we talked about in the earlier segment, maybe you got to look at an offensive lineman, because maybe it's a little bit of a dead heat or close to a dead heat in terms of who the best player is. But if there are fewer interior offensive linemen that you think can play in this league, well, maybe you got to pick them second. You can't wait till third, or if the compensatory third you're hoping to get, because there might not be any there. And so, there's a lot of keeping a lot of balls in the air when you're trying to put together a draft class. And so there's going to be some changes on this offensive line. And again, as I said about the running backs, I think that it's a position that the Steelers need to address this offseason.
They've been remarkably fortunate that they haven't had to go into draft saying, wow, we absolutely have to take a lineman in the first 2 days. Most teams in the league have not had that luxury at all. And at some point it's going to catch up with them.
You hope not. I mean, I remember when they waited for DeCastro to fall. Remember DeCastro kept falling, like going, wow. You know what I mean? Yeah, that was a gift. And he landed right in the Steelers' lap, and they needed him. Obviously, not having to retool this line, again, is such a blessing. These guys have played so well together. But last year was not the year that you want to hang your hat on.
Well, and I think, when you look at the group, I think it's better at tackle, deeper, than it is in the interior, just because of the unsettled situation with the free agents and the loss of Fred Johnson.
All right, let's get to our next Twitter question. This one is, Ben's going to be another year older and protection broke down too often last year. What specifically will the team do to improve line play and keep Ben upright and open holes for the running backs? This is from Sour Matt.
Boy,
Matt?
It's a sour tone.
No one on the offense is thrilled with how they played last year, and the results show that. But I'm more in the camp of, I still think this line is closer to the group we saw the last couple years as opposed to the results we saw this past year. And I mentioned running back protection was a problem. I didn't think the tight end blocking was up to snuff. You didn't have Roosevelt Nix. So I blame some of the periphery more than I do the big 300-pounders.
Yeah.
But more so, if you have Ben, he knows where the blitzer's coming from. He knows what protection to get you into. All the professional aspects of playing quarterback, the mental side of it, knows where to go on the hot routes. That makes everybody else so much better. And I think that'll be the results in the end. I'm so confident in this group.
No question about it. I think everything you just said is a truism. What I look for, too, is the fact when you go 3 different quarterbacks and 4 different running backs and how many, not only is the protection all screwed up, but the game plans are totally different. And how the quarterback delivers the ball, when he delivers the ball, and how he delivers the ball, the snap counts, all these things play into having a good offensive line stay solid together. Some guys were a little bit nicked up last year and it created some obvious problems. But I think Ben coming back is the first big domino that you want to set up right for the next year. And then you start piecing everybody back into it. If, again, if the big Ragu happens to be a cap casualty, that's the way it goes. And you got to move with Filer. But you've got 4/5 of that line from, the previous years, put them back together. And I think Zach Banner and Chuks Okafor represent a good, decent right tackle and with the opportunity to grow, a lot of upside.
Yeah, and, the other thing you didn't mention, Matt, you were on the button. You just forgot one thing. The inexperienced wide receivers didn't do their job on the perimeter either,
You're right.
blocking for the running game. And so that also was part of that problem. But, again, as Matt said, having Ben back will fix a lot of the things, a lot of the mental things, being in the right protection, the hot route, calling out the blitzes, all of that kind of stuff. And I think that is going to help. But again, there is going to need to be a little bit of reinforcement done at this unit. I don't think it's ready for a total rebuild. I think when you still have Pouncey and DeCastro in the interior there, that's a real good start for any team. And I think that the Steelers, unlike a lot of NFL teams, they're not looking for offensive linemen in this offseason who have to come in and play right away. They're looking to reinforce, the group that they have and allow them to grow a little bit into the system a little bit. So while it needs some help, I don't think it's a drastic situation.
And I think just going back on, if I can just jump in this last little sequitur, when I think about back in the days, I try to always think about what did I, as a player, there was something between, and God bless him, I love Cliff Stout, but when Bradshaw was in the huddle, there's a little intensity ratchet that goes up because at the very worst, all right, you're going to pull somebody down. You're going to tackle somebody rather than give up a sack, or you're going to commit the most felonious foul ever, which I have done. But anyhow, the point being, you are going to make sure that your guy, if he, at all possible, you're not going to get him hit. When the king is in the castle, when you got Ben back, there's a little intensity factor that ratchets up. It's a subconscious thing. It's not that you want to play any less or be any less intense with the next guy, but there's something about the presence of a guy in the huddle that you have, like Ben, like Brad back in the day. It kind of ratcheted things up.
Not to mention, when Ben's in the game, defenses aren't going to crowd the line of scrimmage as much. They're going to be much different schematically. I mean, there's a lot of times where there's just too many people to block for the Steelers because they didn't, honor the passing game.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining me today here on the Steelers Roundtable. Thanks to everyone for submitting your questions. I did have a chance to sit down today with Steelers General Manager Kevin Colbert, so make sure you tune into Steelers.com or the Steelers app to catch that interview as well. Combine's coming up, but we will be back here next week, so thanks for joining us. Have a great night, everybody.